Well, hello, Josh. Hello, user 102. I don't know if you're on my previous podcast. We had camera problems. But anyway, my name is Peter Greenlaw. I've been a nutritional researcher for 21 years. We're going to discuss today why diets are failing us because they're failing us miserably. We have 80% of America overweight, 50% obese, 50% pre-diabetic. Can anybody put in the chat any diet you can name that is not some form of lowering calories? But there's part of the Achilles heel. First of all, did you know that the human body doesn't know what a calorie is, doesn't count calories, doesn't care about calories? The only thing the body cares about is what's inside the calorie. That's what we wrote about in this book, which came out in 2010. I've written 3 other books, all 4 books were written with MDs. I've worked with some of the top medical doctors and nutritional researchers in the entire world that for 38 years they've been looking for the silver bullet for weight loss, and now they finally found it. In 7 new revolutionary peer-reviewed human trial studies that we're going to talk about today, which we have the privilege of knowing and writing in our books. Men and women who weren't allowed to exercise, wait till you hear this, they lost as much weight in 7 days as in 8 weeks of any diet. They lost as much weight in 30 days as anybody lost in a year on diets. They lost no water, and instead of losing lean muscle mass, which we're going to go into in just a moment, they gained 6 to 9% lean muscle mass. But believe it or not, the weight loss, as spectacular as it was, and despite gaining lean muscle mass, that's the least impressive thing about this new protocol. Number 1, blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, all came down dramatically just in 30 days. Inflammation, which plagues all of us, is the underlying cause of every medical disease out there. It came down 25% in 30 days. People's hunger came down 41% in a month. And in 8 weeks, people shrank their visceral, that's the belly fat, by 33%. These researchers are the top nutritional weight loss physiology researchers in the world for 38 years. They've done over 150 studies, thousands and thousands of people, and what they discovered is it's gonna change everything. It's gonna make every diet out there obsolete. So I don't care whatever diet you're on right now, there's just no comparison. So let's look at a couple of just traditional diets, and then I promise I'll explain to you what did they do in these new protocols to change everything. Okay, so let's first go to, well, let's start out with Harvard Medical School, a new article. They just said, stop counting calories. The idea of a calorie in and a calorie out when it comes to weight loss is not only antiquated, it's just wrong. They said what we need to emphasize is what's in the calorie, not how many calories we're consuming. Exactly what we wrote about in 2010 when this book first came out. Now, we had lots of critics because they all said, well, the only way to lose weight is to lower calories. Well, that's being completely debunked now. So let's go to a big study in the New England Journal of Medicine, arguably the #1 medical journal in the world. They did a 12-month study. They had 2 groups of people. Group number 1 was simply lowering calories. Group number 2, they did time-restricted eating, where they didn't eat for 16 hours and they ate for 8. It's just another way of reducing, the quantity of food you're consuming. In 12 months, those that did calorie restriction lost 16 pounds in a year, and those people doing time-restricted eating lost 12.6 pounds in a year, but both the group who lowered calories and those who did time-restricted eating lost up to 40% of their lean muscle mass. There's your Achilles heel to every diet. That's why you can lose weight. No, the researchers proved it. They've looked at 150 different diets. Every person, every time lost weight. Didn't matter whether it was paleo, keto, Mediterranean, Atkins, fasting, didn't matter. But every time when they did the analysis through blood, stool, urine, and fat analysis, they saw that people were losing up to 40% of their lean muscle mass. It was slowing down their metabolism. When they came off the diet, they were gaining everything back. See, that's the problem. None of these diets work long term because they're based on a flawed premise about this whole thing about calories, okay? So let's look at a different way about thinking about how you lose weight. Well, forget calories for just a moment. The only thing our body cares about every single day is imaginary horizon, which that horizon is the minimum amount of nutrition, not calories, that the body needs on a daily basis, okay? So you're going along great, but then you decide, well, I'm a little bit overweight, I want to lose some weight. I'm going to lower the quantity of the food I'm eating. That's all the diet is. But what they never tell you is at the same moment you drop the amount of food, you drop the amount of nutrition. When the body senses not enough nutrition, it goes in starvation mode and literally goes and prevents you from burning fat and turns around and looks for fuel. For what? For the brain, the kidney, the liver, the heart, etc. What does it need? It needs nutrition. So what does it do? The body immediately begins to break our muscles down, converting them into carbohydrates for fuel, but that's so inefficient. The body does two of the most unhealthy things you can imagine. Number one, it slows down your metabolism. The rate at which you can burn calories actually when you're resting. It has a name. It's called the basal metabolic rate, okay? But the second thing it does is even more alarming. In addition, when you lose lean muscle mass, the body also slows down your own immune system, its effectiveness, okay? So the thing that was so significant in these new peer-reviewed studies, no one was allowed to exercise, and yet they gained 6 to 9% lean muscle mass, lost no water. They literally lost weight 12 times faster than any diet ever out there, okay? So now I'm going to explain to you briefly, what did they do? How did they accomplish this? Well, first, maybe some of you heard the story about Thomas Edison when he invented the light bulb. People said, well, you failed 3,000 times inventing the light bulb. He said, no, I didn't. I just figured out 3,000 ways not to invent it. That's what these researchers did, because they knew out of the 150 studies they'd done on every single diet, yes, people lost weight, but what was the methodology? In every case, they were reducing the quantity of food people were eating. But they came to realize, years later, that it was really ineffective, because every time people were losing lean muscle mass and every time people were gaining all their weight back. Let me read from another big article in here. Those people going on any type of, this is from the study, anyone out there doing a low calorie, restricted calorie diet, those people end up, 66 and 2/3 end up gaining more weight than they lost when they first started. Okay, so the evidence is pretty much overwhelming over and over and over again. That's what we're seeing, okay? Now, what the researchers figured out was this. It was never going to work. If you went on a diet and you just lowered the amount of food you were consuming and you ignored the nutrition, you were doomed for failure. Look, right now, we have 80% of America overweight, 50% are obese, 50% are pre-diabetic, okay? Right now. But it gets worse. Here's a study. This study was done in 2008 by John Hopkins Medical School, and here's what they had said at the time. They said if the current trend continues, this was back in 2008, so that was what, 16 years ago. They're saying that by 2030, 86% of America is going to be obese or overweight. Then they went on to say, even more troubling, the authors note, by 2048, all Americans will become overweight or obese. Now remember, they did this in 2008, and so in 2024, we're at 80% overweight, 50% obese, 50% pre-diabetic. So I'm thinking, if in 6 years, we're going to have 86% of America overweight, does anyone really think diets work? I mean, do you really think so? And I have people come on, well, I eat a Whole Foods, and I eat one meal a day, and calories in, calories out. Well, if any of this stuff worked, how could we have 80% and headed towards 100% of people overweight within 24 years? So the researchers said, okay, we have to change this up. So what they did, they said, all right, we're going to figure out, can we lower the quantity of food, but somehow maintain or increase the amount of nutrition? Now, remember, this was a theory when they started. It had never been attempted before. So what did they do? Well, they had people consume 40% of their food from, Whole Foods, organic, whatever it was, right? But the other 60%, here's what solved the dilemma. They literally set out to create the world's most perfect meal. Now, what would that entail, In addition to, but regular food would only be 40% of a daily consumption of food. But they wanted to create the world's most perfect meal. So what's lacking in our food in North America? Why can't we do it with 100% of the food from North America? Well, they'd done that for 38 years. They'd used organic. It never worked because we're deficient in very critical parts of nutrition. The first one are called trace ionic minerals. You need 70. And in the best organic, in all the studies, you get 15 to 20 because we're basically destroying the soil, Now, what are ultra trace minerals? Well, there's also minerals you need like iron, calcium, magnesium, but ultra trace minerals are things like gold and silver and zinc and arsenic, believe it or not, and beryllium and boron and molybdenum, Well, they found one of the foods as part of this, world's most perfect meal and contained all 70 minerals. That was number one. Okay, what's the second thing they've found to put as part of the world's most perfect meal? One of the most critical things that we consume on a daily basis or we get from food are called amino acids. There are 20 amino acids, 9 are essential. You have to get them from your diet. The other 11 are non-essential, right? How do we get amino acids? In proteins. So you'll hear this, the people on social media telling you, well, we're going to show you how to have 120 grams of protein a day. So you think you're getting 120 grams of protein or 120 grams of amino acids. Nothing could be farther from the truth. They developed a new test in Europe. When you ingest a protein from a plant or from an animal, you get all 20 amino acids. When we ingested the protein, very little of the amino acids ended up working in the body. Like, for example, in a plant-based protein, it's only 10%. On all steak, chicken, liver, fish, it's about 30%. They found a source where the absorption of the amino acids was 91%. However, just like when you hear about a balanced meal, remember, they're creating the world's most imperfect meal. In order for the protein, because see, let me go back. When we ingest protein, think of protein like a walnut shell. As we ingest it, the body breaks it open. It's called body protein synthesis. It takes the 20 amino acids in and lets our genes make human protein. So when you ingest protein from a plant or an animal, believe it or not, it's a toxin. They call them nitrogen catabolites, okay? That's the part of the protein that's not converted into amino acids, right? So the part of why they were able to go to 91% was not just the protein source, but the protein source interacted with the 70 trace ionic minerals, which ironically are called the spark plugs of life. Why? Because the mineral fires up the enzyme, and the enzymes that they found in this food source triggered this reaction where almost all of the protein was gone and you were left with the pure amino acids. So 70 minerals, the 91% absorption. Third thing, one of the things we really need are electrolytes, especially as you'll find out a little bit later, because 2 days a week they're doing what's called intermittent nutritional fasting, not time restricted. I'll get to that in a moment. So now the perfect meal includes the 70 minerals, 91% absorption, and the electrolytes. The fourth thing, back in the 60s, the Russians had discovered they're called adaptogens. They come from Mongolia and Manchuria. And what adaptogens do, they lower stress and they lower inflammation in your body. By the way, in the medical studies, they proved that inflammation came down 25% in 30 days. No diet has ever touched inflammation, okay? So the Russians and the East Germans were taking these adaptogens, and that's how come they beat us. Because they could run 100 meters and 10 minutes later they could run at 220 because it lowered the inflammation in their body and also stress, right? Okay, the last thing that they did, they found a source, and this is critically important, with natural vitamins, not synthetic. So you're not taking a capsule. This is a food, okay? And in that food, it has, again, tremendous density of natural vitamins, nothing artificial. So the world's, according to the researchers now, they now felt they had the world's most perfect meal. So what they did, they created, in a week's time, 5 of the days, they did something called protein pacing. The day started with one of the world's most perfect meals, including the 91% absorption of aminos, a normal lunch, part of the 40% of the food from the grocery store, a normal dinner, part of the food from the grocery store, but ironically, they had a fourth meal. They had the world's most perfect meal after dinner, okay? They did that 5 days a week, protein pacing. 2 days a week, as I mentioned, they did intermittent nutritional fasting, nothing to do with fasting, nothing to do with time-restricted eating. On those days, no food from the grocery store. What? No. They just consumed the world's most perfect foods. Now, why did they do that? Because they wanted to have the least amount of food by volume, and yet they had tremendous amounts of nutrition. And here's why. I'll come back to it in a moment. Last night when we all slept, as long as we didn't eat too late, once we went to sleep, the body shuts down digestion and automatically begins to detox our body. It has a name. They called it autophagy. That's the scientific name for removing the dead cell and the debris while we're sleeping. Well, here's one of the fallacies, like something like time-restricted eating. You need tremendous amounts of nutrition to fuel up the very sort of engine that detoxifies us. It's built into all of us. You don't have to go get it. Well, the researchers basically duplicated that same process when people were awake by just 4 meals on intermittent nutritional fasting days. They had 4 meals a day of the world's most perfect meal, okay? But they did blood, stool, urine, and fat analysis, and what did they prove? They proved that this protocol, first and foremost, was removing herbicides and pesticides and Scotchgard and Teflon and even plastics from the body. No diet has ever produced anything like that. That's why I would tell you right away, don't even do this to lose weight. That's a throw in. Your main thing will be on the 5th morning, you'll think your scale's broken, okay? So again, the key becomes these toxins, okay? They're even talking about it now nationally. Finally, the national media is waking up and saying, wait a minute, the weight loss thing is really pretty much tied to toxins. There's I think her name is Kaylee, I'll think of it, Means. She was a Stanford medical surgeon, left medicine, said, this is crazy, I can't do this anymore, and went to look at what's causing all these problems. Thank goodness we have wonderful drugs for high blood pressure, high blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, all those things. But is that really, I mean, if you're on those drugs, at a minimum, if you could reduce the amount you needed, wouldn't that be a really good thing? So let's go back. So now they had 40% of their food, and there's a grocery list that you would get if you do this. Those fats, carbs, proteins, fruits, etc., that are part of the 40%. The other 60% comes, like I said, from these foods. So let's review. 70 trace minerals, a 91% absorption of aminos, electrolyte, the adaptogens, and these natural source vitamins. Now you have the world's most perfect food. Now, the point is, on a protein pacing day, you had it in the morning, then you had basically a lunch and a dinner, and then at night. Well, what that did, that kept you at that, you never dropped, even though they were reducing the quantity of the food. For example, like I told you, you're only going to consume 40% of the food you typically would buy from the grocery store, which the other 60% you're buying from these five foods from fulfillment companies. So, people ask me all the time, how much is it? And I go, well, I really don't know, because I don't know if you want to gain weight or lose weight. But in general, most people say that if they looked at their total food budget, because now you're really slimming down what you're going to buy from the grocery store, that other 60% all but covers the cost of these of the world's most perfect meal. I mean, if we've got 80% of America overweight, 50% obese, 50% pre-diabetic, do you think maybe it would be wise to take a look at something else? And you can see it right there. Type shy human-ciness. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, but that's okay. Jesse Pinkman got pegged in a Bentley last night. Just curious, where do you get your doctorate? I don't have a doctorate. I'm the researcher of the researchers. What I was saying before, I've written 4 best-selling books over some of the top medical doctors in the world, geneticists, molecular biologists, nutraceutical chemists, and researchers in the world. I've written 4 best-selling books with medical doctors, and the people that I've worked with are considered some of the top people in the world. I wrote, so our books are Why Diets Are Failing Us, the TDOS Syndrome, the TDOS Solutions, and this, our last book, Your Third Brain, I wrote with the top oncologist probably in the world, who's also a molecular biologist, who also worked with 2 men who won the Nobel Prize in medicine. So I am not the expert, please be clear, but I became an expert on the experts. That's why it says right there, researcher of researchers. That's what we've done. And we've created that free website for you. Well, there's no books to buy on their website. I don't want to sell you books, because then people would accuse me of, well, he wanted us to go to a website to buy books. No, I don't. I want you to go to see the medical proof of something that's going to change the world. I want you to see what's going to obsolete every single diet out there and is the silver bullet, according to the world's top researchers, for obesity. They have it. They proved it. They have medical. But it's also for people that want to gain weight, athletes that want to become stronger. We've got kids as young as 2 doing parts of this, people in their 90s. We have a gentleman with a heart transplant. And we're not treating, curing, diagnosing, or making any medical claims whatsoever. But the studies, there's 7 peer-reviewed human trial studies. Okay, as a matter of fact, let me show you the website, everyone, just so you won't think that I'm making this up. The only thing on this website, you're going to see it scroll up here for you. There are 4 modules. One is a podcast with the #1 nutritional researcher in the world who conducted the studies. Number 2, there's a walkthrough, a much more detailed explanation of exactly what they did. It's a video. Number 3, the actual medical studies. You physically go there, click, you can see the studies. And fourth, the before and after pictures, which aren't just about how much weight people lost, but their blood sugar, their blood pressure, the triglycerides, et cetera, all done with the medical study. That website is 100% free. You can see there's nothing to buy there, not my books, nothing. That was not our intention. Our intention was to give you a place to go where you could see the medical proof. Now, the other part of it that's even better, Body Pro, I'll come back to that in just one moment, okay? What I'm saying to you is, on the website is the medical proof. It's the best thing any of you could do, right? I'll do my very best to explain it to you. But the point is, you can see a podcast with the #1 nutritional researcher in the world, who's also a physiologist, very rare combination, who for 38 years, he and his scientific teams are considered the #1 weight loss, nutrition, exercise researchers in the entire world. They've done over 38 years, they've done over 150 studies, and they're the ones that made this up. Now, keep in mind, they don't sell anything. So they're not involved in whatever you would or not buying. What they're involved in is showing you, well, they taught us how to show you exactly what did they do in these medical trials, okay? So when you go there, if you like what you see on that site, sign up, hear me clearly, sign up for a free, and I mean free consultation. Free. There's no gimmicks, there's no games, there's no tricks. It's absolutely free. And if it'll be with one of our coaches who's done the protocol, who is trained to answer your questions. The other thing I should tell you that's pretty unusual. So 40% of what you would spend in a month is from the grocery store. You'll have a grocery list. The other 60% of basically the foods that create the world's most perfect food. That amount of money you would spend, the suppliers to the studies offer you 100% money back guarantee in the first 30 days. That's how convinced this is going to work. No questions asked. They'll even pay return shipping, because nothing's 100%, of course. But where else you're going to get free coaching and it's 100% money back guarantee in the first 30 days. What's your risk? Your risk is your skepticism, which I support, will keep you from even going to the website. I promise, if you go to that website, there's nothing to buy, there's nothing to see, there's no celebrity endorsements. It's just the medical proof, okay? So what are the foods, nutrient dense, that we should eat? Okay, so you can't, unfortunately, buy them from your local grocery store. It's not possible. So 40% of what you're going to consume comes from the grocery store. So what was the makeup of the world's most perfect food? #1, they found a food source that has all of the trace ionic minerals that we should be taking on a daily basis, which the experts say, not me, the experts, we need 70. In the best organic you're buying now with your best intentions, you get 20 out of 70. Now, what are ultra trace minerals? Well, it's not just iron, calcium, magnesium. Believe it or not, it's gold and silver and zinc and selenium and boron and molybdenum and boron, et cetera, and molybdenum, sorry. And those 70 minerals, the reason they're so important, and they found a food group that had all 70, okay? There are still places in the world where we haven't used pesticides and herbicides to destroy the soil, and the nutritional levels are just crashing. That's what's happened in North America. Our food is becoming more and more nutritionally insufficient, I guess would be a good way to say it. So the researchers found researchers, that's sort of a double entendre, I guess, that had for 25 years found sources of food with tremendous amounts of, like the 70 trace minerals. So that was #1. #2, critically important to the human body are amino acids. How do we get amino acids in a protein? Now, what may fool you is you'll see these influences, in all due respect, medical doctors and chiropractors and dietitians. Whoa, gonna have 120 grams of protein a day. That sounds good. But Europe, they smashed that opinion, because through blood, stool, urine, and fat analysis, it's true. The only way you get the 20 amino acids, 9 are called essential, 11 are non-essential, is in a protein from a plant or an animal. But what you have to understand, the actual protein itself is a toxin to our body. You heard me. Just like with a walnut, you don't want to eat the shell, you want the walnut. So the body, when we ingest the protein from a plant or an animal, the body breaks it open, extracts those 20 amino acids and distributes them to our genes. To give you an idea, you have 22,000 genes in your body. Our body makes 22,000 different human protein. But protein the protein that's not converted into amino acids is turned into toxic waste called nitrogen catabolites, urea, creatine, ammonia, and glucose, okay? So when they looked at plant-based protein, what the percentage, 0 to 100 of absorption was 10%, 10%. When they looked at steak, chicken, liver, fish, all animal proteins were 30%. Well, they found a food source that was 91% absorption of amino acids. Aha! But part of the key to that was that the very minerals that were also part of the world's most perfect food interacted with enzymes that were in this food source to allow them to interact and create, well, almost leave no protein left, is what it was boiled down to. Third thing, they found a very specialized electrolyte. Now, you've heard of electrolytes, that's like Gatorade and Powerade. They're okay, but this is like on a different plane, okay, as far as its absorbability. And why you need an electrolyte, it helps your body to hydrate itself, okay? Fourth thing, they also found a food with what are called adaptogens. Now, maybe you've never heard the word before. Adaptogens are what the Russians and the East Germans used back in the 60s to kick our butt in track and field. Their athletes could really run 100 yards and 10, 15 minutes later run 220. Well, what adaptogens do? They lower inflammation and they lower stress in your body. Very important. Inflammation is the underlying cause of every disease out there according to the medical world. In the studies that they did, they lowered inflammation in 30 days by 25%. There's nothing out there even close. And the last thing, the last part of the world's most perfect food was a food source with natural vitamins in massive amounts. See right now, well, I'm taking a multivitamin. Great, it's synthetic. This is natural. So again, let's review the world's most perfect meal. 70 minerals, 91% absorption of aminos, electrolyte, the adaptogens, and the natural vitamins. But that was only the start. That was the ingredients. Then they did, remember, all of what I'm telling you had never been done before. So they don't, like the research, they don't have a company. They're scientists. They wanted to find out, okay, if we did this, how would it work, right? So then they created two different ways of consuming food. The first one is called protein pacing. On a protein pacing day, which is be 5 days out of 7. And by the way, this protocol is called R2M. You know what that stands for? Race to maintenance. The idea is to get people to their goals quickly and safely as possible and then teach them how to stay there. So the initial program, which is obviously what I'm explaining to you right now, they'd have one of these world's most perfect food in the morning for breakfast. They'd have a regular lunch from the grocery list. They'd have a regular dinner from the grocery list. And they'd have a fourth meal after dinner, not dessert, but another one of the world's most perfect foods, okay? That was 5 days a week. 2 days a week, they did something called intermittent nutritional fasting. On those days, no food from the grocery store and just the world's most perfect foods. Why? Because in order to get the body to do what the body's capable of, which is to detoxify itself, you have to really limit digestion. So you have to have the fewest number of calories, but you don't want to sacrifice nutrition like you do if you're doing a fast, for example, okay? See, last night when you all slept, whether you know it or not, once you went to sleep and your body basically slows down digestion, the body automatically turns on a natural detox mechanism. It's called autophagy. It's getting rid of all the dead cells. Well, the researchers, remember now they did blood, stool, fat, and urine analysis, proving that this protocol was assisting the body in removing what? Herbicides and pesticides and Scotchgard and Teflon and even plastics from the body. What was the result? Men and women lost as much weight in 7 days as 8 weeks of any diet ever studied, lost as much weight in a month as a year on any diet. None of it was water weight. And instead of losing precious lean muscle, which is the case on every diet we researched and wrote about, they gained 6 to 9% lean muscle mass with no exercise allowed. I know you're skeptical. Of course you are. I do this all the time. I do 3 or 4 of these podcasts a day, because I want to make you aware, I want to educate you, I want you to, look, we created that free website. What's the food source? Body Pro. Like I said, the food sources, they come from all over the world. They come from Russia, Mongolia, Manchuria, from Tibet and the Himalayas, South America and New Zealand, okay? Now here's the website where you can go and see the medical proof. The medical proof, right? if let's see, let me put it on the other side there. I got more people that want to know about the website. So, okay, hold on. So, only thing I'm sharing with you is the medical proof in 7 peer-reviewed human trial studies, 7 of them. Okay. For those that don't understand the power, well, first of all, there is no other, like when you look at paleo, keto, they've never commissioned a peer-reviewed human trial study about themselves. But the studies that were done, for example, like the Journal of the American Medical Association, because the medical world now is saying, wait a minute, something's not working. We got 80% of America overweight, 50% obese, 50% pre-diabetic. We got more diets than ever. What's going on? Well, here's what's going on. This is one of many, many studies now that are coming out. Journal of the American Medical Association did a study. It's called a meta-analysis of 48 different studies over 7,286 people. And they listed all the major diets pretty much by name, right in the study: paleo, keto, Mediterranean, time-restricted eating, fasting, Cornish, zone diet, lose weight for your blood type, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem, et cetera, et cetera. In the 12-month study that they did and published in their journal, they found that the most amount of weight loss compared to the least amount of weight loss in a year was 10 ounces. So all these diets you get hyped up on, et cetera, at the end of the year, they all pretty much end at the same place. And what was the result? After 12 months, people lost about 16 pounds, and 40% of what they lost was lean muscle mass. Well, contrast that with these 7 new peer-reviewed human trial studies. That what you got to understand, the researchers, there was no plan. There was no like, hey, this is, there was no product. They created this with a combination, 40% of regular food, and then these foods that made up the world's most perfect meal. I don't know any way to explain it. That's what they did. And the medical evidence is mind-boggling. See, the main reason to do this is not to lose weight, as I've said before. The main reason to do this is to attack this medical syndrome, which me and you and every one of you have, called TDOS: toxicity, deficiency, overweight, and stress. And the experts are saying, now, wait a minute. One of the major reasons why people are gaining weight and can't lose weight or plateau is because the chemicals that we're storing inside of us. And I don't want you to believe me, but let me read from the world, from experts talking about this. The Endocrine Society, the largest organization of experts devoted to research on hormones and clinical practice of endocrinology, reports the rise in the incidence in obesity matches the rise in use and distribution of industrial chemicals that are causing a generation of obesity. They go on, by the way, these chemicals, they gave them a name. They call them obesogens. They said, simply put, obesogens are chemicals that disrupt the function of our hormonal system, leading to weight gain in many of the diseases that curse the American populace. They enter our bodies in a variety of sources, from natural compounds in soy, hormones fed to animals, plastic pollutants in food packaging, chemicals added to processed food, and pesticides sprayed on our produce. They act, listen to this, they act in a variety of ways, mimicking human hormones such as estrogen, blocking the action of other hormones such as testosterone, and essentially reprogram us to gain weight. What are you doing about obesity? Because no diet has ever been shown to remove even a gram. And if you think you're going to exercise, they've proven in exercise there's no toxins in exercise. You can run 100 miles today, sweat like heck, and you're not removing any toxins, okay? And let's listen to another expert talking about these chemicals. It's now making national news. And yet, little old Peter Greenlaw, I discovered this medical syndrome. It's a registered trademark, U.S. Patent Office. Toxicity driven by deficiency, overweight, and stress. Basically, what I was screaming about was what they're talking about here. That, wait a minute, we're storing these chemicals in our body? How can that be a good thing, right? So, but what it's doing in order to protect us is you ingest these chemicals. The body takes the chemical and stuffs it inside your visceral fat. That's the fat around your organs. And the fat cells, expand or contract. We don't really lose them. But when we ingest a chemical, it comes in that fat cell, it expands it. Well, in the studies with no one allowed to exercise, they shrank this visceral fat in 8 weeks by 33% with no exercise. That's what I'm saying. This is scientific evidence and proof. It's not an infomercial. This is the real deal. Now, let's hear what another expert says about these chemicals. Frederick von Saal, professor of biological sciences at University of Missouri, Columbia. Obesogens are acting by hijacking the regulatory system that control body weight. The presence of obese individuals is the first reason that traditional dieting methods have become outdated. Never before have traditional low carbohydrate, low calorie diets been forced to accommodate for this level of synthetic chemicals and the adverse effects they have on the body. The body's attempt to protect itself from the constant assault of synthetic toxins results in the production and storage of fat. See, people complain to me all the time. It's not just that I'm overweight, it's the amount of fat. But we're evolving as a species to protect us from these very chemicals that are in our normal world. You don't have to believe me. 8 weeks ago, they came out and said 1 cup of Starbucks coffee, you get between 50 and 100,000 microplastics in every cup of coffee. And I like Starbucks. But everything is lined with plastic. But what's this stuff doing to us? Look at all the disease statistics. They're out of control. If we have 50% of America pre-diabetic, does anybody think that diets are working? It's crazy. And yet, let's see. It's called, okay, great. The amino acid for gaining lean muscle is called leucine. You can talk to bodybuilders, they'll tell you they're consuming 1 to 2 grams of protein every single day, but see, they're getting this huge volume of protein with very little absorption. That's what they don't know. We have athletes, well, one in particular is one of the top celebrity trainers in Hollywood, really good friend of mine. And he was very skeptical about this because he's a big shot and can get, food sources from all over, endorsements and whatever. And he went on this. He started at 12% body fat. I'd kill to be 12% body fat because he's a lot younger than me. But in 14 days, he went from 12% body fat to 5% body fat and gained 5 pounds of lean muscle. His before and after in 14 days, you would swear he went to a Halloween shop and bought one of those ab things. And he was already in incredible shape at 12% body fat. Only eating organic. I mean, he, purist, works out 7 days a week, etc. You can't make muscle in your body without leucine. You can't. It doesn't work. You can lift all the weights. I mean, that's why, again, they say, do you know what they say? He taught me this. He said, Peter, 10% of the success of working out is the workout. 90% is the nutrition. I mean, I'm only telling you what he told me. I mean, I have no reason. But we've got NFL football players and hockey players, but marathoners and triathletes and CrossFit people and you name it. Because, and actually this is something new. There's a new condition now, the medical community is called normal weight obesity. What? Yeah, normal weight obesity. So you might look thin on the outside, but when they analyze internally inside the amount of visceral fat that you have, because you're not immune to storing chemicals just because you think you're in good shape. So that percentage of that visceral fat in conjunction to your muscle mass, not my opinion, I'm just telling you, they would classify as you being obese. That's what normal weight obesity means, okay? So this is so revolutionary, okay? But the point is that what are you doing about the TDOS syndrome? What are you doing about the chemicals you're storing inside your body? So don't tell me paleo, keto, Mediterranean, time-restricted eating, carnivore, I don't care. I'm not against any of those if you want to do it. But the evidence is pretty clear. You will lose weight on any diet, but it's the wrong kind of weight. Every time, every test, every study, in the long run, people end up losing 25 to 40% of their lean muscle. Then they end up slowing down their metabolism. They gain everything back and they think, oh, well, I failed. Well, it didn't work on paleo, but I'm going to do keto this time. I just told you they did a 12-month study looking at all the diets over 12 months, Journal of American Medical, not me, Journal of American Medical Association, the weight loss difference in 48 different studies, 7,286 people looking at all these diets. The results were, after a year's time, the most amount of weight loss to the least amount of weight loss was 10 ounces in a year, and the weight loss in a year was about 16 pounds, and 40% of that was lean muscle mass. With 80% of America overweight and 50% obese and 50% pre-diabetic, honestly, does anybody think diets are working? We're losing this battle. Because in 2018, obesity was 42% of the population. 6 years later, it's 50%. And like I said, Johns Hopkins, a medical school, did a study in 2008 and projected, they said, well, right now we're at 80% overweight, 50% obese, 50% pre-diabetic. They estimated that by 2030, so in less than 6 years, less than 6 years, they're saying 86% of America will be overweight or obese. And they went on to say, even more troubling, this is from them, not me saying this, that by 2048, all American adults will become overweight or obese. What? You think diets work? And I know you're going to come out and say, oh, I lost 20 pounds, I lost 30 pounds, I lost 40 pounds. But did you keep it off? But more importantly, what did you do about removing the chemicals you're storing inside of your body? What are you doing about that? So, I mean, my point is that you're in a position that you can change your life potentially in a few days. And if you do decide that you want to investigate this, then I'm going to put the website up there again so you all can see it. Control V. No, Nada Quiver, I don't want you to buy my books. Much more importantly, it's free to go there. Please go to the web. You can buy them if you want to, but that's not the most. You can see my books actually behind me there, I guess. My head's covering up. And wow, that's amazing. I'm still having trouble entering the conversation. See if it posts this time. Wow. Wow, I posted it twice. There you go. The New Health Conversation. That's the free website to go to. Now, why do I not want you to buy my book? I mean, you can if you want to, but here's why. The website has the most up-to-date medical proof, including a study that came out 8 weeks ago, just 8 weeks ago, in Nature Communications, the #1 medical journal in the world. And this was on the protocol, but this time they weren't worried about weight loss or anything else. They were worried about your gut health, what's called your microbiome. And they saw massive increase in 30 days and had many people with all kinds of gastrointestinal issues in 8 weeks. You can read the study. I'll show you where you'll find it for all of you. This is our website. You'll see there's no books. There's nothing to buy there. It's just the medical proof. So there's an interview with the #1 nutritional researcher in the world. There's an explanation of what much more detailed than what I'm giving you now. Not because I'm trying to be evasive, but on the website, it's a video. You can watch it and walk through. These are what they ate, how they ate, et cetera. The research studies are there. And the last thing are the authentic before and after pictures that aren't just about weight loss. They're about the medical results that they had from the people that did the medical studies. We have nothing to hide. We're not here to trick you. We're not here to, like, if you go to the website, we're not going to contact you. There's nothing. But if you want, at the bottom, scroll down, it says sign up for a free personal consultation. And I mean free, with one of our coaches who's done the protocol themselves and have helped hundreds and hundreds of people over the last, let's say 20 years or less. But their experience. And why would we do that? Are we crazy? Because it's unfair to you. What if you want to gain weight? What if you are an athlete? We have kids as young as 2 doing parts of this, people in their 90s. We have a gentleman with a heart transplant, a kidney transplant. And look, we're not treating, diagnosing, curing any diseases. Let's get that out of the way. That's not what we do. But what we essentially, if you said, what's the value? The value is we teach you how to do what they did in the medical studies, and we make it available for you to buy the 60% of the food you'd be consuming. We don't make the food, we have nothing to do with it. And like I said, the coaching is 100% free. And secondly, though the 60% of the food you would buy from the fulfillment companies, I know it sounds good to be true, it comes with a 100% money back guarantee in the first 30 days. Well, what diet are you going on now where you have that kind of what's your risk? Your risk is your skepticism. I get it. You're worried that, and I know people tell us all the time, I've tried everything. That's why I was reluctant to try that. This is not a diet. It's like nothing you've ever done before. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, it's right there. Harvard, right here. I mean, that's the headline. Harvard Medical School, stop counting calories. The idea of a calorie in, calorie out when it comes to weight loss is not any antiquated. It's just wrong. They go on to say we need to change the approach and concentrate on what's in the calorie, not how many calories we're consuming. That's Harvard Medical School. See, the thing about us, we don't give you opinions. Even though we get people on here and they want to, mix it up with me, and that's fine. But it doesn't serve a purpose because, and I was going to explain that a long time ago. So a peer-reviewed human trial medical study that these researchers who had done 150 studies over 38 years of every diet out there, and there were 3 conclusions they proved in those 38 years. 1, every diet, every time people lost weight. Number 2, this is bad news. Every time, every person, every diet lost between 25 and 40% of the lean muscle mass, and every person long-term gained all their weight back. I know you've experienced that Because if that was not true, how could we possibly have 80% of America overweight, 50% obese, and 50% pre-diabetic? This is out of control. This is a pandemic. This isn't an epidemic. This is crazy what's going on. And when you got people like Johns Hopkins Medical School saying that by 2048, 100% of America could become overweight or obese if the current trend continues. And what's the trend line? 2018, you had 42% of America obese. 6 years later, it's 50%. And they're projecting by 2030, in less than 6 years, that 86% of Americans will be obese or overweight. Are we just defining the definition of insanity? You just are looking for a new name of a diet? The principle is always the same. All diets, you lower the quantity of your food, which lowers what? Your nutrition. It's not up for debate. When your body senses not enough nutrition, it goes in starvation mode, stops you from preventing fat, and it needs nutrition to run the brain, the kidney, the liver, the heart, all the organs. Where does it start? Where does it get it first? In our muscles. That's why you see all these people that have lost these tremendous amounts of weight with all the loose skin. The only thing they lost was muscle mass. They didn't lose any fat. In these studies, they prove with no exercise, men and women, shrank their visceral fat by 33% and increased their lean muscle 6 to 9%. If you go to the website, you'll see before and afters. You will swear we photoshopped it. There are people in there that lost 100 pounds. They have no loose skin. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. How do we get your book? Okay. Go to, again, the researcher, the New Health Conversation. It's over here, the New Health Conversation as well. So let me review for everybody. Well, what we're talking about is my first book, which I can't believe I wrote in 2010, 14 years ago, and there's been 3 or 4 updates since then. What our theory was, why in the world are we counting calories? When the body doesn't know what a calorie is, doesn't care about a calorie, but instead of counting calories, or counting our food in essence, we need to count what's inside the food, which is nutrition. When you're hungry, you're not hungry for calories. Calories is just a measurement. It's the amount of heat it takes to raise a gram of water, 1 degree Celsius, period. So what's the evidence on study after study after study on diets? Let's look at a 12-month study in New England Journal of Medicine, where one group of people just lowered calories. The other group of people did time-restricted eating, where they didn't eat for 16 hours. They eat for 8. They call it intermittent fasting. Okay, so for 16 hours a day, they didn't eat. 8 hours a day, they ate. It's just another way of reducing the amount of food you're consuming. It's ridiculous, but what did they find? Now, this is, by the way, this is the New England Journal of Medicine who did the study, not the people doing calorie-restricted diets or the people that did time-restricted eating. Well, in 12 months, the people that did calorie reduction lost in a year 16 pounds. The people that did time-restricted eating did even worse. In a year, they lost 12.6 pounds. That's a little over a pound a month. But right in the study, it said both those doing calorie-restricted diets and those doing time-restricted eating lost between 25 and 40% of their lean muscle mass. There's your Achilles heel. I don't care what diet you're on. You're losing lean muscle. And we're saying you're going to lose weight. But here's what we're finding now. Not us, but the research. These diets are doing something not for you. They're doing something to you. Because every one they're seeing, you're losing lean muscle. There's another study in here that was done on the Mediterranean diet. In case none of you know what that is, for the last 7 years in a row, it's been voted the #1 diet in the United States by U.S. News and World Report. 7 years in a row. Well, that must be fantastic, right? Well, in 8 months, people lost 10.2 pounds. Pretty similar to what I just said with the New England. See, these studies are lining up together. The results are almost identical. Doesn't matter what diet they study. And they went on to say that in the Mediterranean diet, 40% of what people lost was lean muscle. And the people that were in the study, a year later had gained back all their weight. Now let's contrast that with these 7 new studies where no one was allowed to exercise. It'll sound, but this is what happened. It's in the medical study. men and women with no exercise lost as much weight in 30 days, 16 pounds, as, as they lost in a year pretty much on any of these diets. But instead of losing 25 or 40% of the lean muscle, they gained 6 to 9% lean muscle mass, lost no water. But that's not the reason to do it. They also lowered blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, all in 30 days. And here's the big one. Inflammation, which plagues all of us and who the medical community has said that it's the underlying cause of every disease out there. It went down 25% in 30 days. No diet's ever produced anything even similar to that. But the other thing that it did that's even more exciting, this medical syndrome, which I discovered, it's a registered trademark, U.S. Patent Office. Now, maybe you don't think that's a big deal. Well, when you get in the medical world and you have something that you want the patent office to give you a registered trademark to protect your research, they search the world trying to find something similar. And if they find something similar, they won't grant you a registered trademark. And all the medical doctors that I work with have been really, complimenting me that it wasn't my research, okay? I just found the research and said, wait a minute, there's got to be an interaction between these four things. And it turns out it was, and the patent office recognized it. So I'm not giving you my opinion, okay? I would really tell you, that's why I'm telling everybody, there's no books to buy on that website. I did it on purpose. I wanted to give you the latest and greatest knowledge, information, so you could go on your own, you could see the medical proof, and then and only then you could sign up for a free consultation with one of our coaches who's done the protocol, who's helped a lot of people, because the coaching is critical. You've never done any, I'm explaining it in simple terms, but it's more complicated than that. And there's even, it's called the Blueprint for Success. It's an actual step-by-step with videos, etc., in addition to a live person coach who will be your coach. Because it's not just what you're going to be consuming, but it's how you're going to be consuming it, which is radical in a good way, completely different than anything. These researchers, they've spent 38 years looking at 150 different studies on diets. That's good enough for me. So let's see, what's the minute go? Okay, what book on deaths, what foods? Okay, I went over all that. I'm just making sure I didn't miss any comments. Let me scroll up here for a moment, just in case. What book on deaths, what foods are super nutrient? What was the main amino acid? I covered all that. So the main thing that I tell everybody, and I'm not your boss, I'm not telling you to do anything, but you can see it right there, the New Health Conversation. It's free. There's no gimmicks. There's only the medical proof. And I'll show it to you again. Here's the actual website. Excuse me. That's all that's there. There's nothing to buy. There's a podcast with the #1 nutritional researcher in the world. There's a video explanation of what you do, the peer-reviewed studies, and the before and after pictures, which aren't just about pounds and inches, but A1C and blood pressure and blood. The main reason to do this, #1, is to assist your own body in removing the chemicals we're all storing inside of us, unless you think that's a good idea. Because there's no diet out there that's ever been proven to remove even a gram of a toxin from our body. So if anybody, let's see. Oh, I see, because I scrolled down. I was trying to figure out where it was on this chart here. Okay. So you can see it there, the New Health Conversation. You can go there for free. Now look, this is not recorded. This is live. I'm actually the author and the researcher. And I'm not telling you this to impress you, but I've spent 21 years of my life. I've done 20 shows on PBS. I was interviewed on the 4 biggest daytime shows in America. And I've done, like I said, I wrote 4 best-selling books, all with medical doctors, MDs, and have done over 1,500 lectures all over the world. They even flew me to China. But I would tell you right away, I'm not the expert, but I became an expert on the experts. And if you said, what's my role in this? It's simply to make you aware of what's available. Because let's say at a minimum, okay, I'd love for anybody to put in the chat, what are you going to do about the TDOS syndrome that you and me and every person in the world has? What's your strategy? You can ignore it. If you think it's a good idea to store herbicides and pesticides and Scotchgard and Teflon and flame retardants in your body, go for it. Now look, we're not saying that you can't remove them all, but even if you can remove some, wouldn't that be fantastic? But they proved in the studies by removing those chemicals, the fat cells shrank by 33%. People lost weight, like I said, in a month. It took a year on any diet. It was not water weight, and they gained 6 to 9% lean muscle mass by effectively reversing everything that had ever been done. And for diet research still today is based on what? Lowering the quantity of the food you're consuming. Show me, list a diet in there that's not set up that way. What would it be? But where they fall down, what impacts you, and the reason they don't work in the long run, is because when you lower the quantity of your food, you're also lowering the nutrition. And when you lower the nutrition, you have no control. Your body turns down your metabolism. But the metabolism that's most important to all of us is what's called your basal metabolic rate. It's a fancy name for the amount of calories at rest. When you're sleeping, sitting at your desk, you're not moving, those calories, which are 23 hours a day when you're not working out, that's what determines your weight, not your workout. I mean, it's been proven before. Well, now they're even saying more, that the whole adage of diet and exercise, by putting you on a diet, lowering the quantity of the food and ignoring the nutrition, you're going to lose more lean muscle mass. This is such a breakthrough. I know that's why people have such a hard time wrestling with this. And I know they want to come after me. I don't know why. I didn't do the peer-reviewed human trial studies. But you have to understand, when you have 7 peer-reviewed human trial studies, they've been reviewed by the top medical doctors and researchers in the entire world before they get published. But if those researchers, if they find that what you're claiming is not true, they publish the bad press. That's why you won't see, whether it's paleo, keto, Mediterranean, time-restricted eating, none of these programs, whatever you want to, have ever commissioned a peer-reviewed human trial study. And yet, if what they're claiming, or any of these supplements that you see on TV, they'll say, oh, we have a scientific paper. Oh, there's a scientifically proven ingredient in our product. That doesn't mean a thing. It's chatter. And again, if we're realistic and look at all the disease statistics, they're exploding. Right now we're spending $4.5 trillion with a T on healthcare in this country. But something you may not know, the CDC about 8 months ago came out and said 92% of you, and I guess me, but fortunately I don't have any of these, they're saying are metabolically unhealthy. Now, how do they define that? They said if you have 3 of 5 factors, you're metabolically unhealthy. If you're overweight, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, or high triglycerides. In the studies, all 5 came down dramatically in 30 days. There were people on there, let's just talk about diabetics for a moment. There were diabetics in the studies, and they were monitored by their doctors, not by the researchers. What they found was amazing. Now, thank goodness we have wonderful wonder drugs with people with high blood sugar, because we got millions and millions and millions of people with diabetes now. So if you're taking glucophage, metformin, insulin, Ozempic, or any of these drugs, it drives down your blood sugar. So that sounds great. But in every case when that happens, insulin goes up. When insulin goes up, what the body does, it stores fat. That's why diabetics have such a tough time losing weight. And yet it's sort of it's a dead-end street, because the doctors, the endocrinologists, the internists, they'll say, if you could lose weight, you probably would need less medication. So they monitored the diabetics in particular through the first 30 days. Well, their blood sugar came down by 10 points, not 10%. That's a huge number. But for the first time ever, insulin came down 41% in 30 days. Along with blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides. Triglycerides came down 25% in 30 days. And on the website, you'll see the people, they've got their before and after with their medical results. Now, you can think we Photoshopped. We didn't. We don't have to, because we're the only ones with peer-reviewed human trial studies. You can follow whatever influencer you want to follow. With all due respect, there's so many of them, there's a plethora. But I would ask you 2 things to consider. Number 1, are any of them showing you one shred of medical evidence about what they're claiming, that what they're talking about does? It's number 1. But number 2, how come 80% of Americans are overweight and 50% are obese. Two more things. I guess I said two, maybe it's four. Three. Are they offering you a free medical website? Do they have a promotional place you go and you can see the before and afters, but there's no medical proof? I'm going to show you the site again. You can go to for free. There's nothing to buy there. No books, but there's an interview number one with the number one nutritional researcher in the world for 38 years, who's considered, he and his team of scientists, they're the top weight loss, nutrition physiologists in the entire world. They're the ones that invented this, discovered this, after 38 years of figuring out what didn't work. Are any of these influences the top nutritional researchers, physiologists in the entire world? I don't know. I haven't seen any. And there's some really smart people with all kinds of credentials after the name. I'll give you an example without mentioning a name. We have a woman right now. I think she's maybe 60. I'm not positive. She started in January, not with us, but on another program. And so from January until now, which is 8 months through August anyway, she's down 16 pounds in 8 months and has spent, I think it's $12,000 on this program. Would you spend $12,000 to lose 16 pounds in 8 months? Oh, but the other problem is she's now plateaued. She can't lose any weight. So hopefully we're coming to the rescue. And this program is nothing like $14,000. As a matter of fact, basically, you probably would end up spending about the same as you're buying, because remember, you're only buying 40% of your food you're buying now from the grocery store, and the other is from other sources. So, wow. Let me just see if, okay, there we go. For some reason, that web view, the screen went black. I apologize for that. Listen, if we're not honest about what we're telling you, how in the world would we give you a free consultation with no questions asked? You don't have to buy anything to have a free consultation, because we don't know if you want to gain weight, lose weight, you've got any medical issues, etc. And then 60% of the food you're going to buy, not from us, but from the suppliers who supplied and made, according to the researchers, they figured out the world's most perfect meals. They give you 100% money back guarantee in the first 30 days, no questions asked. They'll even pay return shipping. Now, if you're still skeptical after that, I don't know what else. I honestly, I don't know what else to say. I can tell you this, the thing I'm the most proud of. The 4 books I've written with some of the top medical doctors in the world. And I wanted to do that because I'm not an MD, and I wanted to have the medical stamp. But they trust me enough to put their name and reputation in my books. And I'm not the expert, but I became an expert on the experts. So we wrote Why Diets Are Failing Us. And this is something you all need. So Why Diets Failing Us really led to me discovering the TDOS syndrome. The T is for toxicity, the D for deficiency, the O for being overweight, and the S is for stress. And then we wrote the TDOS solutions, which essentially the researchers reinforced a lot of what I'd written about, but not everything. They really were the ones that figured this out. And then this book, Your Third Brain, not a trick title, written with arguably one of the greatest oncologists in the world, who's also a molecular biologist, who has worked with 2 gentlemen who won the Nobel Prize in medicine. And in the research world, if you're a medical doctor or scientist, you want to get published in these big medical journals like New England Journal of Medicine or the Lancet, whatever. Most of them in a lifetime, if they get 10 or 20 of their papers published, it's a big deal. My colleague that I wrote that book with, he's had 237 published of his studies published in the biggest journals in the world, and 2 of his studies are in the top 10% of all medical papers ever submitted. But I'm not taking credit for that. That's my colleague. What I'm bringing to you is the knowledge from these world-class experts that I've worked with, who in the case of the researchers who did the medical studies, I didn't meet them until, a couple of years ago, and knew that these studies were going to be coming out, because these medical studies actually take a long time. They cost a lot of money. But again, The reason you won't see another supplement, nutrition, weight loss protocol with their own, they initiated a peer-reviewed human trial study, is because would you get excited if almost all the diets they looked at, in a year's time, they lost about 16 pounds and 40% was lean muscle, and pretty much everybody gained all their weight back. I know it's happened to you. There's no way that it couldn't have. But something else to kind of prove the point. How did I end up doing what I'm doing? Well, sadly, my own mother, who I loved, my mom was morbidly obese my whole life. I never knew her thin. I never knew her healthy. And 23 years ago, before I became a researcher, but one of the reasons I did, she called me up one day and said, Peter, I have one wish in my life. I said, Mom, what's that? She said, I would give anything if I could spend 24 hours thin. I said, wow, Mom, that's a great goal. Well, 6 months later, massive heart attack and stroke. My mom did about every diet that was available, okay? I'd see her lose 20 pounds, gain 25 back. She did the cabbage soup diet, the grapefruit diet, the banana diet, South Beach, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem, OptiFast, you name it. And what she would do, she'd lose the 25, gain it back, and say, okay, I'm starting a new diet. And I believe, based on what I have learned from these world-class experts, that each time as she began to lose lean muscle mass, one of the things that's a muscle in your body, in case you didn't know, is your heart. And what happens on these diets is something that's called catabolic metabolism. It's a fancy word for the body essentially using your muscles for fuel. Now, a real extreme version is anorexia. In anorexia, what happens? Well, I don't know how many of you remember the singer Karen Carpenter, but anyway, she was an incredible singer. She had anorexia. And when she died, she'd lost all her muscle, all her fat, and essentially, according to what the reports were, that her body essentially was eating her heart, and she died of a heart attack. That's late stage anorexia. Because keep in mind, your body wants to survive. It has a tremendous, tremendous survival mechanism. You've heard many of the heroic stories on people that, how did they survive? How did they do it? Well, it's that instinct, of the survival mode that we all have. So the body's no different. The brain is the number one thing. It says, I want nutrition. I'm going to find it. And it'll go and attack your muscles first. That's what it's doing. And any diet you're on now, with all due respect, you're losing lean muscle mass. And that's going to come back to haunt you. When you stop the diet, you won't be able to burn as many calories. You're going to gain everything back. So am I making sense? If anyone wants to put a comment in the comments. Max. I'm not sure what Max means. Max, you just put your name in there, but there's nothing after it. You notice. You nudie. I'm not sure. I guess that's some. Let's just get rid of him. That's a, here's the thing that's so sad. Okay, people. It's like, don't believe your lying eyes. Go to Walmart, go to Kmart, go to Costco. Look at a picture of a beach in 1970 and look at a beach now. And this is not about fat shaming. Like I said, I lost my own mother to obesity, and I loved her, and she was late 60s when she died. But it was a big reason why I became a researcher. I said, there's just something really wrong with this. And I never thought it was going to end up where I'd written 4 best-selling books. I did 20 shows on PBS, been interviewed in the 4 biggest daytime shows in America. I've done over 1,500 lectures all over the world. I've even been in China. I've flown over 2 million miles just on United. To do what? To be here today to give you a place where you can go with no threat from us to contact you. No gimmicks, no tricks, nothing to buy there. As I said, I'll show you the website again. There's nothing to buy on that website. There's the medical proof. Interview number 1 with the number 1 nutritional researcher in the world. Number 2 is a video explanation in more detail of what they did. Number 3, the actual medical studies. And number 4, the before and afters, which are, you'll think we photoshopped them. But I guess what I'm saying is, are you a little bit curious, just a tiny bit curious? Because you have to understand the researchers, and by the way, they're getting contacted with other obesity experts from all over the world, from Oxford in England, from Stanford University, from Harvard Medical School, and they're saying that this protocol will make every diet obsolete. I mean, honestly, why? You can be skeptical, but let's just say it's real because we have the medical proof. So let's assume the medical proof is clear. Are you telling me you'd rather go on a diet that you believe for some reason that lowering the quantity of food called calories is going to work when you could lose as much weight on any diet out there that's been analyzed in 7 days that would take you 8 weeks on a diet? How about losing as much weight in 30 days as any of the diet studies that I've read to you from today in 12 months? Lose no water and gain 6 to 9% lean muscle mass. Aren't you at least curious, just a little bit curious? You know, I do these podcasts and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people at any given time. I did one yesterday, I had almost 20,000 people on the total time. Also, it was 5 hours long. I'm not doing that again today. My voice won't handle it. But I'm always curious as to why, if it's free to go and see the medical proof, what would hold you back? What would it be? You can even put it in the chat. I mean, I'm just really curious. Do you not believe? I don't want you to believe me. Let's get me out of, suppose I'm not even here. But you have access to the medical proof, which I showed you right there again. On this website, there's nothing to buy, no books, no gimmicks. It's the medical proof of the studies, what they did, and an interview with the number one nutritional researcher in the world, who he and his team for 38 years have done over 150 studies of every diet out there. That's why I don't want you to believe me. Why would you believe me? Remember, I'm the researcher of the researchers. It's not my research. But again, I would invite you to look at a couple of things. Number one, all the influences you're looking at, what are they giving you? From what I see, they're giving you an opinion, and that's interesting, but it means nothing in the medical world. And you know why I can say that? Because I've been doing this 21 years. I wrote over the first 20 years, wrote 4 best-selling books, appeared 20 times on PBS, interviewed on the 4 biggest daytime shows in America, and did 1,500 lectures all over the world. I've been in university, I've been in hospitals, I even was in China. Do you know none of that mattered in the medical world for 20 of my 21, well, it's almost 22 years now, but 21 and a half, let's say. Didn't mean a thing in the medical world. Why? Because there was no peer-reviewed human trial medical studies. You can hear the term. They're based on human beings, not on rats or mice, not a petri dish, not a scientific study, not a clinical study. Because they can do a clinical study on mice and rats. Oh my gosh, like my whole modus operandi here is messed up. And like I said, we really feel privileged that we get to let you go and see the medical proof. You know, people come on and they give me, they do. They come on and give me lots of opinions about things. Well, you know, I eat just 1 meal a day. Good luck. I'm doing time research. Oh, only way to lose weight is intermittent fasting. Really? Wait a minute. New England Journal of Medicine does a 12-month study on intermittent fasting where you don't eat for 16 hours and you eat for 8. And in a year's time, they lose 12.6 pounds, and up to 40% of what they lost, according to the New England Journal of Medicine, is lean muscle mass. Next, what's the next one? Paleo, keto, fasting, time-restricted eating. But I guess you can think whatever you want. All I'm saying to you is, if today, 80% of Americans are overweight, which they are, and 50% are obese, and 50% are pre-diabetic, is what we're doing working? Do you question it at all? I mean, go to the mall, go to Costco or Kmart or Walmart or whatever. It's sad. See, my mother didn't get a do-over. You can, if you choose. The first step would be to go to the free website. Free, no contacts. We're not going to talk to you. We aren't. Unless you sign up for a free personal consultation. Once you've seen I'm going to show you the website again for the new, there's nothing on there to buy. It's the medical proof. Everything is on there. including an explanation of exactly what they did in more detail, a video, the research studies that you can actually see, and the before and afters, including the medical results. I mean, I don't know what more we can do. Oh, and then, by the way, if you like what you see, you can sign up for a free personal consultation with one of our coaches who's done the protocol, been trained to answer all your questions. And if you do decide to do it, that coach will be your live coach for free as you do this. But if you can lose as much weight safely in 7 days as 8 weeks of any diet, lose no water and gain 6 to 9% lean muscle mass, or lose as much weight in a month as a year on any diet, aren't you a little bit curious? Just a little bit? It just, like I said, it just amazes me. So let's see. Cost per month. Okay, that's a great question. I'm blessed that I could put my own family on this, thanks to Peter. Wow. Thank you very much for that comment. Okay, so cost per month. You'll think I'm being evasive. First of all, the cost per month depends on what you want to do. Do you want to gain weight? Do you want to lose weight? Let's assume you want to lose weight, which is what most people want to do, right? So if you looked at your food budget now, imagine you're only, whatever the number is, take 40%, that's all you're going to spend at the grocery store. The other 60% would be to create the world's most perfect meals, okay? With ingredients, no organic comes close. The researchers found these food sources that made up the most perfect meal they knew of on the planet that had everything that's not in regular food. Most people feel that if the 60% they're not spending on food that's nutritionally bankrupt, this can be about the same as they're spending now on food, or maybe $50 or $100 more a month. Now, the key here is to get you to your goal. It's called race to maintenance. And then you could do as little as one of these perfect meals for breakfast. Cost you like maybe $3-4, but it's replacing your breakfast. We got to understand, we're still replacing 60% of the food. So you might find that it's maybe the same as what you're spending now in a month and more, but that's only to get your goal. Then once you're on maintenance, it's way, as a matter of fact, most people feel on maintenance, they're spending less in their total food budget than they were before they even did this protocol. Because one of the things we but they proved, hunger for people went down 41% in 30 days. So when people came off the protocol, they overall were consuming less food. And because they had the world's most perfect meals, at least once a day, they had the nutrition they needed to avoid lowering the amount of fuel the body needed to avoid starvation mode. That's why these people now, 2 or 3, listen, I lost 40 pounds 21 years ago. I've kept it off for 21 years. Do you think maintenance maybe works? See, the main reason to do this is to get to maintenance. We're not even kidding you. I mean, you're going to lose the weight. That's not even up for debate. But it's really a question of, do you want to hit the reset button, or you want to believe the influencers that are doing what? They're giving you opinions with not one shred of medical evidence. And they're telling you like the only way to lose weight is, to lower calories. Well, first problem with that, the human body doesn't know what a calorie is. If they need to reframe their analysis, and really all a diet is lowering the amount of food you're consuming. And when you do that, you lower nutrition. And when you lower nutrition, your body will begin to burn your muscles for fuel, slow down your metabolism, and you'll gain all the weight back. But the more insidious part is when you lower your lean muscle mass, you also affect the effectiveness of your own immune system. The main reason to do this is not to lose weight. That's like a joke. And again, like I said, the whole key to it is to get you to maintenance and show you how to stay there. The people in the studies, because these studies, they take, 2 or 3 years, they cost a lot of money. Well, they've tracked the people 2 and 3 years later after they did the initial protocol. They've kept their weight off now for 2 or 3 years. Well, in my case, 21 years. But I'm not alone. A diet, the problem with this, it's always a destination. Do you all agree? I want to lose weight for a wedding. I'm going to a class reunion. I want to be thinner by Thanksgiving or whatever. Or, the famous January, the New Year's resolutions. But look around America. if any of this worked, how could 80% be overweight, 50% obese? So what I would encourage all of you to do, if you want to, is must not be from Canada. I spend that in less than a month for myself. I'm not sure. You guys are having your own conversation and not starving. I'm hooked. I've listened 4 times now. Okay. Let me put it up there again for you. So you can go to the website, EMIT, E-M-I-T. If I pronounce your name wrong, I apologize in advance. I'm a researcher. I'm not as gifted as I probably should be in those areas. So I'm going to end this podcast right now. I actually have to go do something else. So it's 4:00 Eastern time. I'll probably do another one in 5:30 Eastern. So if you came on late or you have somebody else that you'd like to be on here, you're more than welcome to do that. So I'm going to close this out now and encourage you all to go to the New Health Conversation. You can certainly see this. Deadpool, hello. And I'm famous for being in comics. I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyway, so everybody have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope this has been helpful. And I really encourage you, go to the website and you can see all the medical proof. And if you like what you see, sign up for a free consultation. We'll go from there. Thank you so much.